Attorney knows best. Intelligent interviews. Interesting insight. Intriguing information. Attorney knows best. Here's your host, Sean Bartley.
Thanks for joining us on Attorney Knows Best. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Hope Cook, all the way from Athens, GA, home of the University of Georgia and the Georgia Bulldogs.
Woohoo!
Hope is a physician's assistant, or better known as a PA. I didn't even know what a PA meant. I just thought a doctor. But she's a physician's assistant and has been practicing now, I think, for probably 17, 18, 19, 20 years almost?
Yeah, about 20 years.
About 20 years as a physician's assistant, successfully, I might add. And she's also the content creator, author, producer, and host of Recharting Your Life with Hope. Thanks for joining us today, Hope.
Thanks, Sean.
It's crowd noise. Everybody loves the applause. Look at the smile. I think you gave the best smile for the applause ever. You're next. But how are you surviving COVID-19? And would a PA be considered a frontline worker? I mean,
I don't really know if we're considered frontline workers. If I were working in the ER, yes. If I were working in an urgent care, but I'm in a dermatology office. So, it's arguable whether it's medically necessary for a patient to come in for Botox or I'm just kidding. We do plenty of medically necessary things. We cut off skin cancers and, treat rashes.
So how's your family faring? I'm going to get to the profession and what you do. How's your family faring during this pandemic?
We're doing pretty good. During the early stages, when the schools shut down, we got back from spring break and we were given like a 24-hour notice that, by the way, the kids aren't going back to school after spring break, so you better make some plans. My husband tried working from home and helping the kids with their homeschool or virtual school. But he's also working on his PhD. So that was a little bit tricky for him. And our numbers in my office started going down. Patients were canceling their appointments. And my boss had a powwow with us and said, is there anybody who would want to take a furlough? Two of us, I think, have kids in school. So I raised my hand and I was like, I will. I'll stay home. So I stayed home he was very generous. I stayed home until August. So that was about April to August.
Right. Wow. So during that time you're staying home, I think you discovered a calling.
Yeah.
Podcast, right?
The creative juices were flowing. And I've always been a writer, but I really started writing seriously and joined a writer's group and hired a writing coach. And part of what she talked to us about was our platform. How do we want to reach an audience? How do we want to reach readers? And one of the lessons that she taught us was on a podcast. And she had a few people who had podcasts come and talk to us virtually. And I was like, yes, I love listening to podcasts. Like everybody, I don't love the sound of my voice, but I decided that I could reach people with my words. And, not a lot of people read blogs anymore. So it's a way to share my words with other people.
Yeah, I don't like my voice either. People always say, oh, man, you got a cool voice. And I go, really? And they go, yeah. And then when I hear it, I'm like, oh, man, I mispronounced that word.
I know. We all do that, though.
You're correct. I have this verbal pause. So, getting over the voice thing is tough. But let's talk about a PA. What is a PA?
Okay, so
what do you do?
Yeah, PA is physician assistant, and we are healthcare providers. We are able to see patients, write prescriptions, diagnose, and treat. We work under the supervision of a doctor, so we don't open our own clinics except in certain states it may be allowed. But for the most part, we work in partnership with a doctor.
Mm-hmm. And so you're like a doctor then. So you work in the medical profession.
Yeah.
And how was it working in the medical profession during this time with all the information going around with COVID-19 and, the fear
Yeah.
of the reality of getting sick? How did you cope with that? And how did you help your patients or your family cope with that, family and friends?
It was scary, especially the first few weeks. We were wearing N95 masks, but there was a shortage. We couldn't get new shipments of masks. So we were reusing our mask every day,
Mhm.
and I don't know how safe that is, but that was the only option we had at the time. And being in dermatology, I'm right up in people's faces. I'm looking at their nose, I'm looking at their ears. So I can't really stand back 6 feet from them and get a good look at their skin. I'm in the room with them, usually like 10 or 15 minutes. So that's right at the cutoff that they say, if you're around somebody with COVID, you could, contract it. So it was scary. At first, my husband was like, you have to, take off your scrubs and your shoes and wash them. And, we were being extra cautious. And then, like everything, after a few months, especially when I went back after my furlough, you just sort of get used to it. It becomes your new normal. And we would screen patients, check their temperatures, ask them the screening questions, and just kind of carry on with life. It becomes your normal to wear a mask. But the part that I have struggled with is facial expression. And that seems kind of silly, but a large part of my job is connecting with patients. So if they can't see my smile or see the expression on my face because half of my face is covered, it's harder to make a connection and to get not my point across, but just to get the impact across of what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, as a lawyer, I can
Hmm.
people, you as a physician's assistant in a medical office, you connect with people. Um,
Yeah.
Zoom doesn't work, in my opinion, for
Hmm.
medical profession connecting with people doing an examination. You can ask them questions. Oh, I'm really confused how
Hmm.
the Zoom thing is working for doctor's appointments. I had a heart attack during COVID-19.
What?
And they tried to
Oh
set
my
me up.
gosh.
Like, no, bro, I need to come see.
Golly.
Yeah, I had
Wow.
a heart attack, but it's been different. Um, One of the things I think is interesting about recharting your life with hope and your practice as a physician's assistant is I think they're connected. And the reason
Yeah.
why I think they're connected is because you're helping people and you're providing a service. Do you see that connection?
I do. I don't know if you've ever done an Enneagram, but I'm a number 2, which is like a helper, a server, an encourager. So I do that in both of my roles.
Mhm.
Um, and I like to, sounds bad, but I like to try and fix people, which is a flaw. But I also like to help improve their lives. And
Mhm.
Chase, my husband, he used to say when we would go out to eat with people, like, Hope, come on, lay off. Like you're trying to get this person to like quit their job and follow their passion. And
Wow. Quit their job, follow their passion. Yeah, so I see how they're related, but like in healthcare, normally you're dealing with somebody with an issue that has progressed to the point where they need a doctor, right? They
hmm
need you and they've either neglected themselves or something's happening beyond their control, right? And then you
hmm
come in like mid problem or after the problem has advanced to a point where, the only hope is a doctor or physician's assistant. But I think recharting your life with hope is similar to helping people, but it's a little bit different because you're taking the initiative to help them, right?
Yeah. So I especially target women who are in a certain age range. It's usually like 30 to 50. And a lot of times we find ourselves stuck, and it may be stuck because of a career situation. It may be stuck because of a marriage or relationship problem. But it just feels like you are stuck and there's not a lot of options. So I help people see what their options are and encourage them to take a step down the path and just, help give them courage.
What
And
are
in medicine, it's kind of the same way. I have to lay out their options, and they look to me to help them make a choice and encourage them to follow through.
Give me an example of being stuck, because
Yeah.
I it's real. And
Yeah.
I think I've been stuck a couple of times in my life. I always feel stuck. I'm in midlife crisis mode
Yes.
right now.
S-
And I
s-
feel like I haven't realized all my dreams, especially financially, and I'm feeling stuck.
mhm.
How do you help people get over being stuck?
Well, I'll give you a few examples. So, one guest, she was had a problem with alcohol, and it came to a head with her employer, and they encouraged her to get help. And so that would be a case of like, look, I'm stuck. I'm addicted to alcohol. I don't know how to move forward. So she had to make some hard choices and move forward. So she told us her story so that it could hopefully encourage other people. Another example, my sister-in-law was our first guest, and she told about working a lot of hours for a decorating design company, and she felt stuck because her kids were being raised by a nanny, and she felt like, this is not the life I want to live. I would like to be more involved and, hands on with my kids. So she found herself stuck. Another guest told about how her husband died of a terminal illness, and she found herself stuck. She didn't want to go back to being a teacher, but she wasn't sure what to do next.
Yeah, I think being stuck is real. I spoke with another guest in another podcast, and his name's Marcel Benson, and he followed the formulaic life that his parents believed he should follow.
Yeah.
He followed the formulaic life that school puts out in front of you.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's hard to get off of these formulas, because we know that formulas what are successful, and they are only derived because somebody has walked the path before you or done an experiment or
Hmm.
study, and they found, hey, this works. But it often can leave you to being stuck. How does somebody discover their dream or path and get on the right track to do it, rather than following the prescribed formulas that we have out there?
I think the first thing is awareness. So you have to name the stories in your head. And a lot of times it involves the word should. I should be doing this. I should be happy. I should love my job. I should, want to do this or that. So the first thing is just awareness that there is a story in your head of a script that you should be following. And then you have to, I call it, drop down into your heart space or get quiet and really name what it is you want. And if you don't know what it is you want, I encourage you to spend time just being quiet and listening, because the
Mhm.
answers will sort of bubble up inside of you. Um, or you can take little steps of following your curiosity. Like, think back to what you used to love to do as a kid. If you loved arts and crafts, or if you loved baking, if you loved model trains like my husband, then you take a little step and just do that. And that a lot of times will light your creativity up, and you'll start to think, I could probably do X, Y, or Z. And it just sort of enlivens you.
Yeah, I think you're uniquely qualified to help people get unstuck, because as a physician's assistant in your practice, you help provide remedies for people to cure their malady that they're having with their skin. The
Hmm.
biggest organ in the body, the skin, right?
Yeah.
And what's interesting is not always our face, right? It's our hands, our feet, our back. I mean, the whole body.
Hmm.
And you help remedy that. And I think it's important that your learned, licensed form of study in the medical profession lends itself to helping people with other issues that they may be facing in their lives. And I think doctors and lawyers are uniquely qualified to help people solve their problems. And your podcast helps do that in helping getting them unstuck and recharting their life and getting out of the the rut, so to speak.
I just had an aha when you were talking. I've never put those two together, but you're right. A lot of times when patients come in with a rash, especially with rashes, I'll say, your body is trying to tell you something.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it might be stress, it might be their diet, it might be that they're sleeping 3 hours a night. And I'm not saying they caused their rash, but rashes are often representative of inflammation and dis-ease inside their body. And the same thing with the podcast. I'll talk to guests about how your inner self, something inside of you, knows the path. It knows the next step. We just don't get quiet enough to listen. So you're right. It's about getting in touch with your inner self, with your body, with listening.
Right. The rash thing is real for me. So you might not know this, but I'm a high strung person.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm very high strung. I hide it because, I didn't know this at first, but I played college football, right? So I didn't know that
Yeah.
I was like different than an average guy. And so I'd be amongst average people, average physical specimen people, right? And I get upset or I'm playing a sport and the things I could do to them, because of my physical strength was like, whoa, wait a minute. I got to learn to control myself. I'm not with other athletes anymore.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm uptight. And so I had to learn to can my natural physical aggression and didn't have an outlet for the anxiety I faced. And so when I went to law school, my uncle told me, hey, man, you can't be working out hard. You can't be doing risky activities. You can't get hurt because you have to finish. And if you break a leg or you break a limb, you're gonna jeopardize your chance of finishing law school or scoring well on the test or studying because you're going to be injured. So I didn't do any physical activity.
Wow.
There was this exam I had with our property teacher. Her name was Professor Witten. She was amazing, but she was notorious for failing people.
Oh.
And so I started studying so hard, and my dad happened to be in town coming to pick me up for the summer to go on a family trip. And I broke out into a rash.
Yeah.
My whole back broke out into a rash because I was feeling this anxiety for, the test and the reality that if I don't do well, Professor Witten, who happened to be an amazing professor, she was so cold-blooded, she would fail you. And it was nothing to her. I ended up getting an A in the class, but my dad was so disappointed that I didn't have the mental wherewithal to control my mind and then therefore control this outbreak of a rash that I had never experienced before. When you face somebody in your office, in your practice that may have like a mental health issue that is in like a skin outbreak, how would you go about advising them or helping to rechart their mind so as to control maybe a rash like I had?
It's hard because a lot of them, they just have trouble making that connection. I had a guy the other day with psoriasis and, it was covering his legs. And I started talking to him about the role of stress in psoriasis. And I said, do you remember when this first popped out? And he's like, yeah, it was about 5 years ago. And I said, well, what was going on 5 years ago? And he said, well, I was in a graduate program, a very intense graduate program, extreme amount of stress. And, I was run down, not eating healthy, not getting enough sleep. And so I tried to help him make that connection. And, but, I guess his question is, well, what good is that going to do now? But I think making that mind-body connection is huge. And then I encourage them to take care of themselves. I talk to them about, what are you eating? Are you eating a lot of inflammatory foods? Are you, drinking a 6-pack every night? Are you sleeping? Because sleep is the time your body goes into parasympathetic nervous system mode. And that's when it's able to repair and heal. So if you're not getting enough sleep, that's not going to happen.
I suffer from the not getting enough sleep thing, and I could see it in my face.
Yeah.
When I wake up in the morning. I'm old anyway, but I can especially see it in my face when I wake up and I don't get enough sleep. I have a problem with telling myself that sleep is okay. I always think man, I could be doing so much more if I didn't need to sleep.
Yes. I mean, it's scary how much that you have a high cortisol level, I bet. Like you're a high functioner, high performer, but that cortisol does have an effect over the years. And it sounds like with your heart attack that could have played a role.
Oh, without a doubt, it played a role. I have to watch myself because I'm dealing with me and you. We're what doctors
Mhm.
and lawyers. What do? We are problem solvers, right?
Right.
And so when people come into your office and you want to help them, and then they have high stress or high anxiety levels. It's like, how do you and I deal with these high stress anxiety levels while trying to be of service to them and not trying to take it personally because
Yeah.
they are in fight or flight mode because they are experiencing a distress in their life.
That is so difficult because we do pick up on other people's energy, and
Mm.
it's easy to allow it to change our energy. So when I'm like during lunch, a lot of times I'll only get 30 minutes for lunch, and I try to go outside because if I sit at my desk and try to finish all of my notes, I just don't have a chance to recharge. And then the energy's gonna bleed out on my family when I get home, and I'm gonna snap at the children and yell at my husband. And
You snap at the children.
oh
I
yeah,
remember you just being so
uh-huh.
calm and peaceful and placid.
Don't let the southern accent fool ya.
I am looking for Southern accents, by the way. Yeah, Southern accents would get me.
But yeah, I mean, sometimes I have a yoga mat at work and I'll take it outside and just do some stretches or try to sit in my car and just do some deep belly breathing because, I mean, your energy is everything. You have to guard it, you have to replenish it. Otherwise, it's going to drain you.
Yeah, the stress is real, and the body's response to it is real. Have you noticed any differences in your patients' issues because of the stress they may be experienced due to COVID-19?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely see. I can detect it when they're stressed. They'll snap at us sometimes, snap at the front office about whether we're running late or, why do you have to check my temperature? That thing doesn't even work. And then we also see stress related illness. We see a lot of hair loss. We see rashes. We see, all kind of things. Did you lose your hair, Sean, from?
Yes, I did. Honestly, I think my hair loss is definitely related to my stress levels as a lawyer, wanting to win for my clients all the time and taking their causes personally. And I definitely think that my hair loss is related to it. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Have you seen the billboards around Atlanta that say mybaldlawyer.com? Like that's his whole platform is like, I'm bald and that'll help you remember me.
Well, the cool thing about being bald is that the $25-$30 I would normally spend at the barbershop, now I get to spend on donuts.
That's right. Yeah.
So recharting your life with hope. Is this podcast that you have, is this a way for you to recharge your life also and bring your audience and your friends along in the journey with you?
Yes, I love it. It really energizes me, lights me up. I podcast in my closet. So when I come out of my little closet, I'm just like, yo, guess what? I just talked to the most amazing person. Or you got to hear this interview. And I just love it. And I feel like it's a way for me to share my inspiration, just living your life and making the most of it with my friends and with my listeners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's great. You give an opportunity for people who successfully made that turn in their life. Say, "Hey, I'm stuck or I'm anchored in this, but I really wanted to try this, and I'm going to try something different." I think one of your podcasts I listened to was a woman who became a yoga instructor and has a wildly successful yoga practice, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Was it Shannon?
I think so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, people from all different walks of life, and some of them choose to pivot, and other people, it's more like life happens to them and they have to decide, am I going to be a victim of my circumstances, or am I going to choose to start a new path?
Hmm. I think COVID-19 and the downtime we've had, like it gave you the inspiration to start your podcast. I had the podcast idea and ready to roll on it, Hope, for 5 years. My
That's
podcast
funny.
name, website, I have the trademark for my podcast name with the United States Patent and Trademark Office.
Yeah.
I had the website under GoDaddy, and I had made some attempts at it, but I just didn't really get started until right before the heart attack. Actually,
Oh, wow.
I bought my mixer and my microphones in March of 2020.
Uh-huh.
And I said, look, it looks like we're going to go into shutdown, and I'm going to use this time to start a new venture, right? But I had, for 5 years, maybe even longer, maybe 7, I had this idea to start a podcast, and I just didn't do it.
Why do you think you didn't do it?
Fear, and I don't like my
Yeah.
voice. And then another thing is it's kind of weird when you're a doer and you're a risk taker and you're like the lone person that's doing something in your group of your group of friends or community. There are always going to be some naysayers, right?
Yes.
And then I'm kind of different, right? I'm a big athletic guy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm kind of outspoken, or might say something, express my opinion, maybe stand out, and then
Yeah.
people hammer you who don't have the same kind of gumption, right? Or who look different than you. My voice is kind of different, my mannerisms, my style is kind of different, my take
Mm-hmm.
is kind of different, and so I'd always feel awkward. And so I had this fear. It's like, oh man, people are not going to like me, I'm not going to do this. I never ever thought I wouldn't be successful, but I think about like what other people are going to say. Isn't that stupid that I think about that?
No, I mean, Martha Beck wrote a book called Finding Your North Star. And in it, one of the exercises is name your quote unquote everybody. So when we say everybody's going to say your voice sounds silly, and so you write down, okay, who would actually say he sounds stupid or he sounds whatever, and you list them, and it's usually 5 or 6 people, and that's it. And it's usually our mom, our sister, like people like that. But we think it's everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I won't tell you who it is for me, but it's pretty prolific in our community. But anyway, I think everyone during COVID-19 is re-examining their life, whether or not they had enough money, whether or not they're going to live or die, or whether or not they can do more, and they need to make a shift. And I don't think it's I think it's realistic, right? People may have lost their job, their houses might be at risk because they lost their job, and people are looking to make a change or make a shift. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's the perfect time. I think COVID has given us a chance to reevaluate our priorities and to ask, is it really important for me to work this many hours? Do I really need this much money? Can I survive with less? What are my passions? What do I want my legacy to be? On my deathbed, what am I really going to care about? So I think it is the perfect time to pivot.
I was telling my wife and my children yesterday, we were all in the family room. They were on their devices. Unfortunately, a movie was playing, and I was chipping my golf balls, and I had this feeling of belonging with my family. And we're still kind of in COVID mode here. We're not going out and doing a lot of stuff. And I looked at my wife and I said, you know what? I said, COVID-19 helped me reconnect with you guys. And there's no place I'd rather be right now than right here with you. And COVID has helped me realize it. And I said, I don't know where else I would be now that I've been with you guys every night for the past, year. Where else would I be? Right. And I think that because I'm spending more time at home and spending more time with my family, it gave me the anchor and foundation that I need to say, hey, what else do I need? Why not start this podcast, or why not concentrate on my business? And then why not leave the office early?
Yeah.
And why not take my clients' problems so personally? There's
Mhm.
problems, but I do have a problem taking them personally. I take their problems personally, but I need to focus on what's most important, and that's my family. And
Yeah.
COVID-19 has helped me recognize and appreciate my family a lot more. Without it, I think I would still be in the daily grind, uh,
Yeah. Same here.
not appreciating my family.
Yeah, same here. I was able to see when I was furloughed that I really didn't need, my whole paycheck. Like we could survive with less. And my daughter, she's 9 now. She was, I guess this was when she was 8, and she was in a stage where throwing tantrums like nobody's business.
Your daughter throws tantrums? I thought I was the only
Oh
daughter
my
that throws
gosh. I
tantrums.
mean, I was ready to like, I don't know what. So we got a therapist, we're seeing her on Zoom, and really the thing that made the biggest difference was just consistency, spending every day with her and just being consistent with punishment or with, praise and quality time together. And she's a completely different child. And, and I credit COVID with that.
That's interesting. I thought I was the only, like, sometimes I look at my wife and I go, "What is wrong with me? I'm failing. My daughter's
Yeah.
throwing the biggest tantrum that I never got to throw because there was the ever-present switch and fly swatter." You might not have got spankings, but I got
Oh, I did. Yeah.
and so it was driving me crazy. But I think my daughter has changed also.
Hmm.
One of the things that my daughter has really done that's really cool during COVID-19 is she's made her room beautiful, and she's
Uh-huh.
really attentive to keeping her room spick and span. And I tell her she's like a college girl now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, our daughters are the same age. My daughter's
Yeah, and
about
that's funny.
yeah. And so, how old is your boy? My Aaron's 11.
He's 13 now.
Oh, he's 13. So yeah, he was Eli's 2 years older.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that I have a funny story about that, as a matter of fact, but about Eli when you guys became pregnant with Eli in Maryland, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I have a funny story about that. But anyway, with my wife. But yeah, I think COVID-19 has helped me, um, my life and my focus. Um, when I saw your podcast, I was like, wow, this is a great theme. And it is an awesome opportunity for people to be encouraged by other people's stories. And I think podcasts, and especially one like Recharting Your Life with Hope, gives a model and inspiration to other people to rechart their lives. When people tune into your podcast, describe the benefit they'll receive by listening in.
So once a week, I interview a guest, and once a week, I just talk. I usually pick a topic that I feel like I'm struggling with or I have struggled with. So it may be self doubt, it may be, imposter syndrome, something like that. But my guest, I try to pick women who have taken a few steps down a new path. And usually it takes courage to do that. So they tell us their story of sort of going from a place of, I don't know what I want to do, or what am I doing here? And then we walk through, all right, what happened? How did you make changes? What were the things that encouraged you? Were there certain books or podcasts or things that people said to you that encouraged you? And as they're sharing this information, my listeners will also be able to hear it and get a dose of encouragement.
Yeah, I think that's important. You do a great job connecting with your guests too. I think
Well,
you have
thank you.
high personality, connectivity posture. I think
Well,
it's great.
as a provider, I see 40 patients a day. So 40 times a day, I have to like connect with them
40 patients a day.
in about 10 minutes.
Oh yeah, that's why I always tell people I wish I was a doctor. I could see 40 people a day in and
I
out.
don't
In and
know.
out. That's crazy. Uh, um, I could imagine your goals for your podcast and practice are similar. Are they?
Well, I don't know. I haven't really connected the two. With my practice, I want to continue to serve my patients and learn as much as I can and just continue to serve. With my podcast, I'd like to grow my audience to reach more people. I'd like to continue to have guests on the show who are relatable. I don't really have aspirations to have famous people on. I want to have people who are just sort of walking the everyday life like we are. But yeah, I guess in that way, I'm serving my podcast listeners also.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you said that about famous people.
Yeah.
Podcast now is like rated on how good is your podcast? What celebrity did you have? And I asked somebody to be a podcast guest, and they asked me questions like that, and I said, "Huh?"
Yeah.
Number one, I was your lawyer, and you're big time in me now. And I said, all right, I don't need you as a guest because someone else has information that they're ready, willing, and able to share that is useful. And just because they're not popular or a celebrity doesn't mean the information they have to share is any less useful.
Mm-hmm.
Right? 2 + 2 from Hollywood is 4. And in Athens, it's 4. And Washington, D.C., it's right. So if we have information to share, and your story and your ability to connect with people and ask questions allow you to get that information out and help other people, I think it's important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In summary, I think you should tune in to Recharting Your Life with Hope and look at re-examining your life and how you could rechart it. I always like to give my guests an opportunity to ask me a question or two. Do you have any you'd like to ask me, Hope?
So, Sean, let's see. What is, I know, now you're getting nervous.
I get nervous because you're looking up at the heavens.
I know. So, Sean, if you could look ahead at your path, do you see any pivots coming up? Do you see anything you'd like to sort of tweak? And
do I see any pivots coming up? No, I enjoy practicing law. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy helping people. The only pivot I see is maybe expanding my practice and getting my associate attorneys to help me more and be more entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
And then also increasing the reach of the podcast and having a permanent studio, having in-person guests in my beautiful conference room here in Silver Spring. But that's my motivation. I want to help people. I love talking to people. I love asking questions. I love learning from others by talking and conversation. I'm more of a auditory learner and an action-oriented learner than a reading learner. I'd rather you tell me about it than me read about it, because I think there's some nuance in people telling you their experience that reading alone does not give you. Yeah.
Do you still do photography?
That's interesting. You said that is with my phone. That's what the reason why I stopped photography, it got to be so busy. And when my photography assistant became pregnant with one baby, and then 18 months later became pregnant with a second baby, and it really frustrated my business. Guess who that is? Guess who that assistant was?
Oh, was it Christina?
Yeah, my wife.
That's funny.
So I didn't have that top flight assistant, and she was an amazing photographer too. And so I didn't have her to help me. And then the law firm took off. You were my first client, by the way.
That is hilarious. I didn't know that.
Yeah, you guys were our first clients. And I know when I was starting my law firm 13 years ago, and we were both members of the same church, you were really curious about it, and you asked me these questions. I answered them. And I think the first week I was open, you and your husband came, and we took care of you. So
yeah.
That
was great. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. If people want to get in contact with you and be on your podcast, how do they get in contact with you?
So check out the website. It's hopethepa.com, or you can just listen on any major platform to Recharting Your Life with Hope. And I usually put my email at the bottom of that. It's hope.cook@gmail.com.
Sounds like a plan. Is anybody in particular would be your dream guest on the podcast if you had a dream guest?
All right, I said I didn't want famous people, but if Oprah called me, I'd say, come on.
Well, you know what I think would be cool for your podcast is you read some of the stuff that you wrote. I think you read something for us one time, or you let me read something, or was your blog. I thought it was amazing. I think you were writing a soap opera or a drama. I think it
That
was
is so
something like
funny.
that.
I don't know.
It was really good.
Yeah, I do sometimes do that. Yeah, so I'll have to do that more often. Thanks for the suggestion.
Yep, you have to do it. Definitely. Well, hey, folks, recharge your life. And if you are on a path that you don't like and you're looking for inspiration to change the direction for the good, please tune in to Hope Cook at Recharge Your Life with Hope. Thanks, Hope.
Thanks, Sean.
Attorney knows best.